Okay, so apparently this loser has decided to horn his uneducated nose into my business. And in the words of the immortal Dr. Doom, I would sooner use a cannon to slay a flea than turn my intellect on this scholarship midget. But seeing as how I have a few seconds and the demand is high, why not? Especially since his so-called response boils down to just two humongous blunders. His vid is just 4 minutes and 37 seconds long. He spends the first minute motor-mouthing his way through the text like some kind of cartoon squirrel on caffeine. Out of the remaining 3 minutes and 37 seconds, a fair portion is lifted from my vid. Then what? All we have amounts to these objections. 1. Whining like a scalded puppy about it not being ever right to execute someone for not being a virgin. 2. Making idiotic remarks denying that ancient law codes were didactic. Let's take the second one first, since it's nothing but typical fundy atheist hogwash. Newsflash, Messianic moron. Your momentary sense impression as a YouTube loudmouth of what something sounds like is not a rebuttal to the work of numerous scholars of the ancient Near East who say that ancient law codes were didactic. No, the bit about purging evil is not a mandatory minimum. That's a thoroughly modern penal notion which you are idiotically importing into the text. Language like that was exhortational. It was meant to emphasize the seriousness of the offense, not impose a mandatory minimum. That's the same reason why a lack of blood on those sheets wasn't cause to dial 911 and have a hissy fit. The fact that some virgins might not bleed after their first sexual encounter was something that would be pled before the judicial bodies of the day, because law codes were only didactic. That's what scholars of law codes like Hillers and Wells say. It's only amateur YouTube loudmouths like the Messianic moron with no relevant or worthwhile academic qualifications who say otherwise. Now with that, how about all those repeated whines about executing virgins? Well, some of it, the Messianic moron and his drones are just too sex-crazed to get past the idea that someone is being punished for what they see as the non-offense of failing to keep it in their pants. And that's mainly because what we have here are a bunch of babies who have lived their whole lives in air-conditioned comfort free of any need to struggle to survive. There's a clue that maybe they aren't old enough to know about yet, but I'll illustrate it with an analogy from this, which is one of my favorite sci-fi novels. The beginning of the story features aliens on a generational spaceship traveling between the stars. The race driving this ship is peaceful and friendly, but there's a certain act that gets the death penalty immediately in the form of getting thrown out of an airlock. Namely, having sex without using birth control. Why? Well, think about it. Generational ship, limited resources. If you make it so you can reproduce wantonly, that's the same as giving a middle finger to everyone else on the ship and saying, I don't care if I put a strain on the limited resources available on this ship and risking everyone else's life and health, so screw you. Well, that's the same thing anyone in the social world of the Old Testament was doing anytime they had sex outside controlled social circumstances. So no, Messianic moron, it's not about someone having hang-ups about being married to a non-virgin. It's about someone by way of their wanton behavior telling their family and neighbors, I don't care if I act irresponsibly in the process, and I don't care if my selfishness puts a strain on limited resources and puts others at risk of starvation. All I care about is what's in my pants. And yeah, there were other factors in that as well, such as the potential for the spread of disease and the destruction of family units. Real penny-ante stuff, right? Now from this point we can expect the usual funny atheist whines asking things like why God didn't magically plop a Safeway supermarket down in the desert, or get them some free birth control so that they didn't have to worry about starving and could take it out of their pants all they wanted. That's about all we'd expect from a crowd devoted to relieving themselves of personal responsibility. I'll close for a hint to the Messianic moron. Keep your nose out of historical and exegetical issues like this one, because you're downright incompetent at it.